On Valentine's Day 2018, screams echoed through the halls of Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. By the time it ended, 17 lives were lost, 17 more were wounded, and a community was shattered. But long before that day, Nikolas Jacob Cruz had already shown warning signs. He was born in 1998 in Margate, Florida. His adoptive parents, Roger and Linda Cruz, welcomed him as an infant. His biological father was never identified. He grew up alongside a younger brother. When he was 5, he saw his adoptive father collapse and pass away. That event left a deep mark on him. In November 2017, his adoptive mother also passed away. That loss came just 3 months before the Parkland tragedy. School was hard for him. He struggled with reading and paying attention. Doctors diagnosed him with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and oppositional defiant disorder. He moved from one school to another. He qualified for special help in class. Even so, his troubling behavior went unaddressed. He showed a fascination with weapons. He carved hateful symbols into weapon magazines. On social media, he posted that he hated different groups. At times, he wrote that he was going to harm people, though he later said it was a joke. By the time he turned 18, he had legally bought a rifle and owned other firearms he did not use that day. On Valentine's Day 2018, he brought his rifle into Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. He fatally shot 17 people, 14 students and 3 staff members. Another 17 individuals were wounded in the chaos. He fired in classrooms, hallways, and outside buildings. It became one of the worst school shootings in U.S. history. Investigators found magazines marked with hateful symbols. They learned he had talked about mass shootings in private, online groups. He later said he chose Valentine's Day to ruin the holiday for everyone at that school. He claimed he wanted the holiday to never be celebrated there again. In March 2018, a grand jury charged him with 34 counts, 17 counts of first-degree homicide and 17 counts of attempted homicide. He did not speak at his arraignment, so the court entered a plea of not guilty for him. Prosecutors said they would seek the strongest punishment available. His defense offered to accept life terms in exchange for no capital proceedings, but prosecutors refused. On October 20th, 2021, he pleaded guilty to all charges. In court, he spoke directly to the victims' families. He said he was sorry and that he had to live with his actions every day. He expressed a wish to help others if he could start over. He mentioned his struggles with substances and apologized again. He also misunderstood who would decide his fate, thinking the families had that power. The judge explained that only a jury could decide his sentence. He then said he understood. The penalty phase began on July 18, 2022. The prosecution highlighted his planning and premeditation. They argued for the harshest punishment. The defense brought forward witnesses who spoke about his childhood losses, mental health issues, and isolation. They asked the jury to consider these factors. On October 13, 2022, the jury agreed that the aggravating factors were present for each of the 17 fatal counts. However, 3 jurors felt the defense's evidence should outweigh those factors. Under Florida law, all jurors must agree to impose the harshest sentence. Because they did not reach unanimity, the jury recommended life in prison without any chance of release. On November 2, 2022, Judge Elizabeth Scherer sentenced him to 34 consecutive life terms without parole, 1 term for each count of homicide and attempted homicide. Nikolas Cruz remains in a Florida prison, serving multiple life sentences for the 2018 school shooting at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. Now what happens when a teenager's hidden online fantasies turn into real-world horror? Ethan Robert Crumbley was born in 2006 in Florida. His family moved several times, from Atlantic Beach to Washington and then to Michigan. By the time he started at Oxford High School in Oxford Township, his parents, James and Jennifer, were working in business and marketing. They had some minor run-ins with the law. As a child, Ethan spent a lot of time alone at home. He showed troubling signs early on. He drew pictures of himself using a weapon at school. He harmed small animals. He sent texts that referenced troubling scenarios. He recorded videos of himself doing cruel things. He also sent unsettling messages about demons and ghosts. At times, he brought dangerous items to school and even kept a bird's head in a jar. Despite these warnings, his parents never sought professional help. On November 30th, 2021, during his sophomore year, Ethan brought a 9mm Sig Sauer handgun into his school. Around 12:51 p.m., he left the bathroom holding the weapon. He began firing at doors, aiming at people's heads and chests. In just a few minutes, 4 students, Tate Meyer, Hannah St. Juliana, Madison Baldwin and Justin Schilling lost their lives. 7 others, including a teacher, were hurt. Investigators found 2 videos on his phone that he recorded the night before. In those, he talked openly about his plan. He also kept a journal full of disturbing notes, including one line saying, "Hopefully my actions will lead to big changes in politics." Authorities treated what happened as both a mass homicide and an act intended to spread fear. Ethan faced adult charges on 24 counts. These included serious wrongdoing that led to loss of life, 4 counts of homicide, 7 counts of planning to harm others, and 12 counts for having a firearm illegally. In October 2022, Ethan pleaded guilty to every charge. He chose not to argue that he was not responsible due to mental health issues. He also admitted he paid for the weapon himself and that it had not been stored safely at home. During court hearings, his lawyers raised questions about his mental capacity. They pointed to possible effects of his mother's heavy drinking during pregnancy. They wondered if he fully understood the choice to plead guilty, but the judge found that he had entered his plea knowingly and of his own free will. Judge Kwame Rowe led the sentencing. He noted that Ethan was young and had a troubled home life. Even so, he said the harm Ethan caused was too severe to allow any chance of release. On December 9, 2023, the judge sentenced Ethan to spend the rest of his life behind bars with no possibility of parole, plus an extra 24 years. This was the toughest sentence Michigan law allows. Ethan's team asked for a lighter outcome, citing his emotional state and family history. They also pointed to new evidence about his mental health. In May 2025, the Michigan Court of Appeals turned down both requests to withdraw the guilty plea and to ask for a new sentence. The court said the plea process had been fair and clear. His final appeal in state court was also denied. His brief comments focused on the families of those who were hurt or lost. Meanwhile, his parents faced separate trials. Jennifer's trial ended in early February 2024, and James's in mid-March. Each was found responsible for involuntary manslaughter for not securing the gun or acting on warning signs. By early April, both had sentences of 10 to 15 years, with the possibility of parole after 10 years. All appeals by Ethan and his parents have so far been unsuccessful. The state's highest court declined to review related lawsuits filed by the victims' families against school staff. That decision cleared the way for the legal process to move forward without further delays. At the heart of this tragedy is a 15-year-old who showed clear warning signs. He never got the help he needed. His choices led to one of Michigan's most devastating school incidents. He now serves his sentence at Oaks Correctional Facility. With his appeals exhausted, he is set to remain there for life. For now, Ethan Crumbley is behind bars, and many people are still looking for answers. Most people knew the next 16-year-old as a quiet teen. Few knew what he'd been hiding, or how far he'd go to be heard. Alec McKinney was born Maya Elizabeth McKinney. He attended STEM school Highlands Ranch in Colorado as a transgender young man. When he was 11, he started using the name Alec. He later began medical steps to match his identity. Friends recall he found his gender identity very hard. He often harmed himself. He also shared upsetting posts on Snapchat. Around age 12, he said he heard voices. He also had thoughts of ending his own life and harming others. He did not take medication. He feared it would make him feel alone or less genuine. Alec was bullied a lot by classmates. They mocked his identity and called him disgusting. This made him feel bitter toward others. Investigators found that he planned an act of violence for weeks. He wanted classmates to experience the same hurt he felt. On May 7, 2019, at about 1:53 p.m., Alec and another student, Devin Erickson, went into room 107. They had hidden weapons in a guitar case or a backpack. Devin left soon after, saying he felt unwell. Alec took out a small revolver. He fired 9 times at classmates who were watching The Princess Bride. 4 students were wounded. Some students tackled him at the doorway and fought over his weapon. A teacher picked it up by accident. Alec slipped away but was locked out of the room. He then took a second weapon from his bag. A security guard stopped him. Alec gave himself up. One student, 18-year-old Kendrick Castillo, rushed at the 2 youths and tackled one of them. He was badly injured and later passed away. 8 other students were hurt. 6 by the perpetrators and 2 by security's return fire. Alec told investigators he planned to end his own life after his actions, but he could not take off the safety on his weapon. When asked why, Alec said he wanted classmates to go through terrible events. He said he wanted them to feel the same kind of pain he had. He named 2 students who had mocked him about his identity. He talked about the plan in Snapchat and Instagram messages he called a bucket list. Those talks turned into planning a dangerous act. At a court hearing on May 8, 2019, Alec though only 16, faced adult charges on 48 counts. Those counts included unlawful taking of life, attempted unlawful taking of life, breaking and entering, setting fires, and weapons charges. A request to move his case to juvenile court was denied. On January 2, 2020, Alec pled not guilty. On February 7th, he agreed to plead guilty in exchange for dropping some counts. He admitted to 17 charges. Those charges included unlawful taking of life, attempting that act several times, planning with others, setting fires, breaking into property, and causing physical harm. The other counts were dropped. Under this agreement, Alec faced a minimum time in custody, with a chance to ask for release after about 40 years. He could stay even longer on top of that. This means he will stay confined for decades before he could ever be considered for parole. On July 24, 2020, the judge set his sentence. Part of the hearing was on live video because of the pandemic. Alec spoke for 22 minutes and cried the entire time. He said sorry to Kendrick's family and to the students who were hurt. He said he took away their innocence, their dreams, and their feeling of safety. He added that he did not want Kendrick's memory to be meaningless. He said each morning he wakes up and tries to do something good. He promised to live differently. He also spoke to other young people who might think of doing the same thing. He asked why anyone would admire someone who hurt others. He said such a person was so troubled that they could not get help. When asked if he wanted mercy, he said no. He told the court that he did not deserve a lighter sentence or pardon. Family members spoke about how this affected them. Kendrick's father spoke with intense anger and called Alec a monster. He said Alec's tears were not enough. One student's mother said she would never forgive him. Teachers and survivors said they would live with lasting fear and distress. They said certain sounds, smells, and memories could bring back those moments. Judge Jeffrey Holmes ordered Alec to spend the rest of his life in custody, plus 38 more years. Under state rules for young offenders, he could seek release after about 40 years. A new law could let him ask after about 20 years if he shows good conduct and completes treatment. The plea deal allowed a sentence over 400 years, but most of that extra time was symbolic. Alec is held by the Colorado Department of Corrections. He is in a facility that matches his gender identity. He stays in a male unit, but has special safety measures. Was Alec the one in charge? Yes. At Devin Erickson's 2021 trial, Alec said that he and Devin planned the act together. They talked about it in Snapchat and Instagram messages. He said Devin followed his instructions because he was scared. Could Alec be free before 40 years? It could happen. New state laws for young offenders allow someone in his position to ask for release after about 25 years. He must finish a treatment program and keep good behavior. This rule is new and has not helped many people yet. It could give him a chance earlier than 40 years. The next 14-year-old warned something big would happen Monday. No one listened. Michael Adam Carneel was born in 1982, so he was 14 when the incident happened. He lived with his parents and older sister Kelly in Paducah, Kentucky. Their home seemed stable. At school, he wasn't very popular, but he wasn't completely alone either. He had a few friends. He played in the band. He even had a brief relationship. Still, he felt very isolated. He believed his classmates didn't like him. He felt overshadowed by his sister's successes. In the months before the event, his behavior became strange. He took weapons without permission. First, he took them from his parents' closet. Later, he took rifles and ammunition from a neighbor's garage. He shared troubling thoughts and a desire to rebel. He also showed deep distrust. He covered vents and windows with towels because he felt watched. After the incident, doctors said he had a long-term low mood and odd thoughts. Later, another expert said he had severe paranoia and hallucinations. He struggled with anxiety, sadness, and strong distrust. These issues changed how he saw rejection and danger. On December 1, 1997, he arrived at Heath High School with a blanket-wrapped bundle of weapons and ammo in a backpack. He told classmates they were props for an English class skit. Inside, he carried 2 shotguns, 2 rifles, a small pistol, earplugs, and hundreds of rounds. He had warned some peers that something big is going to happen on Monday, but no one took him seriously. That morning, he walked into the school lobby. About 25 to 30 students were there for a before-school prayer circle. He moved past a group of peers in goth style. He set his bundle aside. When the leader said, "Time to pray," he put in his earplugs. He pulled out his pistol. He fired 3 slow shots. Then he fired 5 more quickly. He did not aim at specific people. He swept the lobby with gunfire. 3 girls lost their lives: Nicole Hadley, Jessica James, and Case Steger. 5 others were injured. Why did he fire at a prayer group? Many of those students were in his band. One doctor said he saw the prayer circle as false. He wanted attention and respect from a fringe peer group, not revenge on specific people. He acted on voices in his head, not on personal grudges. Authorities charged him as an adult for ending 3 lives and injuring 5 others. The trial focused on his mental health at the time. After evaluations by both sides, he made a deal. In October 1998, he pleaded guilty but mentally ill. The judge sentenced him to life with the chance to ask for release after 25 years. That was the maximum sentence for someone his age in Kentucky. He first stayed in a juvenile facility. When he turned 18, he moved to the Kentucky State Reformatory in LaGrange. He later appealed his plea, arguing his illness made the deal unfair. Both the Kentucky Supreme Court and a federal appeals court refused his appeal. He had a parole hearing in September 2022. The board denied him release. They changed his sentence to life without any chance of early release unless the governor intervenes. Immediately after the incident, he surrendered. He dropped the weapon on the floor. He told a fellow student, "Please end my life. I can't believe I did that." Later, at his hearing, he spoke of still hearing voices. In interviews, he admitted deep despair. He said he felt nobody loved or cared for him. He said he didn't aim at any one person. He said the voices drove him and left him confused. Could earlier help have stopped this tragedy? He began acting strangely, covering vents, taking items without permission, and talking about harming others. These warning signs raise questions about how to support people in deep distress before things get worse. Michael Carneel remains behind bars. His life term now has no chance of early release. He once said he didn't understand how he ended up with a weapon that day. Now, how did one teenager go from writing about loneliness to writing to a minister from behind bars? Luke Woodham was born in 1981. At school, he was alone. He wore thick glasses and old clothes. Other students teased him without mercy. At home, things were hard too. His parents split when he was 8. His father left soon after. His mother, Mary Ann, stayed mostly by herself. Over time, Luke sank into deep anger. He wrote in a journal that he felt invisible, unloved, and deeply humiliated by the people around him. He also wrote about wanting revenge. That morning, Luke went to the kitchen where his mother was getting ready for a run. He struck her again and again. She did not survive. The medical report later noted many slash wounds and marks to her chest. He even used a baseball bat to finish the brutal act. At his trial, Luke muttered that he heard voices in his head. He said he could not recall what he had done. After that, Luke took his mother's car keys and drove to Pearl High School. Under a long coat, he carried a .30 rifle borrowed from his older brother. At about 8:06 a.m., he handed a stack of papers, his personal writings, to a friend named Justin. The papers included his feelings, poems, and a note like a goodbye letter. Then he stepped into the school commons and opened fire. His first target was Christina Menifee, a girl he had once dated. Shot at close range in the neck, she did not make it. Next was Lydia Dew, known for her cheerful smile. She stayed alive long enough to whisper something to a teacher, but she soon lost the fight. As students ran, Luke fired at random. Stephanie Wiggins suffered a broken hip. Jerry Safely was hit trying to shield his girlfriend. Alan Westbrook tripped while escaping. Luke caught him and fired into his back. Westbrook lived, but with serious injuries. Others were hurt when bullets smashed tiles on the floor. Fragments flew up and struck them. Students who saw it said they felt frozen in horror. One recalled seeing so many people on the floor with serious wounds. In the chaos, Assistant Principal Joel Myrick ran out to his truck. He grabbed his pistol and chased Luke as he tried to drive away. Myrick forced Luke's car off the road and held him until the police arrived. In his confession, Luke said, "It's like I was there, but I wasn't." His lawyers argued he was not responsible. They pointed to mental illness, his tough childhood, and a local occult group called the Croth. The group reportedly encouraged aggressive revenge and isolation from mainstream peers, though its influence was debated at trial. Prosecutors said he planned every step and acted on purpose. In June 1998, a jury in the trial for his mother's end did not accept his argument. They found him guilty of first-degree charges. He was sentenced to life behind bars. As he left the courtroom, handcuffed and shackled, he said, "I'm going to heaven now. Everything happens for a reason. It's God's will." 1 week later, he faced a second trial for the school incident. Again, the jury found him fully responsible. He received 2 more life terms plus long prison sentences for the students he harmed. He will be able to ask for release in 2046 when he is 65. While in prison, Luke turned to Christianity. He wrote to a well-known minister saying, "I am not insane, I am angry. I acted because people like me are mistreated every day." He also gave interviews from prison, claiming he was manipulated by others and expressing regret for what he had done. The next teenager said he went to school that morning to end his own life, but 2 others lost theirs instead. Evan E. Ramsay was born in 1981 to Don and Carol Ramsay in Alaska. By the time he was 5, his father was in prison for a well-known armed standoff. His mother struggled with heavy drinking. Their home life became unstable. When Evan was 7, state services took him and his brothers from their mother's care. Over the next 3 years, Evan lived in 11 foster homes. Many of those homes exposed him to physical harm and unwanted intimate mistreatment. He later said classmates teased him without mercy. He even received payment from some foster siblings to be beaten. Around age 10, he settled with one foster mother in Bethel. From that point on, he carried deep sadness and depression. Evan was quiet and withdrawn. He often stayed away from classmates. They nicknamed him Screech, after the character on the sitcom Saved by the Bell. He felt like an outsider. Teachers called him rebellious and disruptive. A year before the armed incident at school, he threatened to bring a gun. No one took his words seriously. On February 19, 1997, Evan got on a school bus carrying a hidden shotgun. He went straight into Bethel Regional High School. He first walked into the student commons area. There, he fired his weapon at 15-year-old Josh Palacios. The pellets hit Josh in the abdomen. Josh passed away after emergency surgery. 2 other students were hurt by flying pellets. What drove a teenager to do this? Some reports point to revenge. Years earlier, Josh and Evan had fought. Years of bullying and hurt feelings had built up inside Evan. As students ran away in panic, art teacher Rainey Athanas rushed in. She watched Evan fire at the ceiling. She begged him to give up the weapon. He did not listen. He moved toward the main office. Inside the office, he fired twice at Principal Ron Edwards. One shot struck his back, the other hit his shoulder. The principal passed away right there. The school community froze in fear. Evan walked back to the commons. He fired once at the police who had just arrived. An officer fired back but did not hit him. In a tense moment, Evan put the shotgun under his chin. Instead of pulling the trigger, he said twice, "I don't want to die." He then dropped the weapon and let the officers take him into custody. The driving force behind this act seems tied to years of hurt. He faced constant bullying at school. He suffered mistreatment in foster care. In interviews, Evan said his main goal was to end his life, even while causing so much harm. He told journalists, "My main objective of going into the high school was to end my life. I really wanted to die." After his arrest, prosecutors debated whether to treat him as a juvenile or an adult. On December 2nd, 1998, an Anchorage court convicted him as an adult. He faced 2 counts of first-degree unlawful taking of life, 3 counts of first-degree attempted unlawful taking of life, and 15 counts of third-degree causing harm. Judge Mark Isaac Wood gave him a 210-year sentence. Ramsay appealed that decision. An appellate court reduced his sentence to 2 back-to-back 99-year terms for a total of 198 years. He first served time at Spring Creek Correctional Center. Around 2017, he moved to Wildwood Correctional Complex. He will be eligible for parole in 2066 when he turns 85. Now, how did a quiet 15-year-old, raised by 2 teachers, become the center of one of Oregon's darkest days? If you find stories like this important, consider subscribing. Kip Kinkel grew up in a quiet neighborhood in Springfield, Oregon. His parents were both teachers. People who knew him as a child say he was once kind, funny, and full of creativity. He loved animals and liked writing science fiction stories. But things started changing during middle school. Kip became distant. He stopped socializing and began wearing only black clothes. He developed a strong interest in weapons and dark thoughts. His parents noticed something was wrong. They took him to a psychologist. He was diagnosed with major depressive disorder. But Kip kept something important to himself. Since the age of 12, he had been hearing voices that told him to hurt others. He never shared this with anyone. He was scared of being labeled or judged. As time went on, his relationships with others began to fall apart. At 15, school staff found a handgun in his locker. The gun had been taken without permission. The school planned to remove him from classes. Facing this situation, Kip started feeling hopeless. On May 20th, 1998, something devastating happened at home. Kip caused the passing of both his parents. He left a note on the living room table. In it, he said he loved them and felt he had embarrassed them because of the incident at school. The note read, "I love my mom and dad so much. My head just doesn't work right. These voices in my head won't stop. I feel like I have to hurt people. I don't know why. I feel like I have no other choice. I am so sorry." The next morning, Kip got dressed in a long coat. He carried a shortened rifle and a small pistol. He drove to Thurston High School. Around 7:55 a.m., He entered the school cafeteria and started shooting. He fired 50 rounds in about 90 seconds. He aimed at students' heads, necks, legs, and backs. 2 students lost their lives that day, 16-year-old Ben Walker and 17-year-old Mikael Nikolausen. 25 other students were hurt. Some of Kip's classmates managed to stop him and held him down until the police came. During his arrest, Kip shouted for the police to end his life. He even moved toward an officer while hiding a sharp weapon taped to his leg. Later, he said he wanted the police to stop him permanently because he couldn't take the pain anymore. People wondered why he did it. Kip talked about hearing voices. He believed those voices came from devices planted in his brain. He even thought a foreign country was preparing to invade. Some believed he acted out of mental confusion, but others also saw deep shame and hopelessness in his actions. Both seemed to have played a role. He was supposed to go on trial using a mental health defense, but Kip changed his mind. On September 24, 1999, just 3 days before the trial was set to begin, he admitted guilt. He took responsibility for the 4 lives lost, his parents, and the 2 students, as well as the harm done to the 26 others who were injured. According to Oregon's Measure 11 law, each life taken carried a minimum of 25 years in prison. His agreement locked in that punishment. The judge had to decide how to handle the rest of the charges. In November 1999, Kip appeared in Lane County Circuit Court. After a 6-day hearing, Judge Jack Madison gave him a total of 111 years and 8 months in prison. That meant Kip would never be released. The judge said keeping people safe mattered more than Kip's potential for recovery. Families of the students spoke in court. They shared how deeply they had been affected. Many described years of pain, loss, and fear. Kip also spoke during sentencing. He read from a small piece of paper. He said, "I absolutely loved my parents and had no reason to hurt them. I didn't hate or want to hurt anyone at school either. I'm truly sorry for all of this. What happened pushed me into a dark place I didn't know existed." Many victims did not accept his apology. One student, Jacob Riker, was seriously hurt that day. He told the court, "I don't care if you're unwell or mentally disturbed, even a lifetime in prison is not enough." The judge added, nearly 87 more years for the people who lost their lives during the school incident. When combined with the 25 years for each life lost, the total came to over 111 years with no chance of release. Kip is now held at Oregon State Correctional Institution in Salem. After the events, doctors diagnosed him with paranoid schizophrenia. He now takes medication to manage the condition. He has said he feels deep regret and shame. He understands what he did as a 15-year-old still causes pain, even though many years have passed. He says he takes responsibility, both for what happened and for the pain caused by his continued existence behind bars. The next 14-year-old joked about hurting people. No one thought he meant it. Andrew Jerome Wurst was born in 1984 in Pennsylvania. His home life was tense. His parents argued often. They lived in separate rooms. His father was upset about Andrew's lack of drive. His mother defended him and gave him leeway. This mix of strictness and leniency left Andrew confused and stressed. Classmates saw him as a loner. He spoke very little. Over time, he grew more unfriendly. In the weeks before the dance, some students heard him joke that he would hurt people and then end his life. They thought he was not serious. At school, he showed signs of difficulty. He wet the bed until he was 9. He was scared of imaginary monsters. He said he heard voices. He believed other people were robots or zombies controlled by scientists. He even claimed he came from the future on a secret mission. He sometimes called himself Satan or a higher being. On April 24, 1998, 14-year-old Andrew went to his 8th grade graduation dance at Nick's Place in Edinburgh, Pennsylvania. He arrived about 20 minutes before the dance was to end. Under his jacket, he carried his father's small pistol. Before he left home, he left a note saying he planned to end his own life. At 9:40 p.m., Andrew stood on the patio outside. A teacher, 48-year-old John Gillette, asked him to come inside. Without warning, Andrew shot him once in the face and once in the spine. Mr. Gillette did not survive. Andrew then went into the banquet hall. He fired more shots. He wounded another teacher, Idri Baratin, and 2 students, Jacob Turi, and a boy whose name varies by account. The students froze in shock. Girls in satin dresses and boys in neckties scrambled for safety. One student said the shots sounded like toy firecrackers. People screamed, cried, and dropped to the floor for cover. The situation could have been even worse. James Strand, the owner of Nick's Place, stepped in. He pointed a shotgun at Andrew. For about 11 minutes, he kept Andrew from causing more harm until the police arrived. Strand took Andrew's pistol and even pulled a dinner fork out of Andrew's sock. Investigators later looked for reasons behind Andrew's actions. His note showed he planned to end his own life. Classmates said he talked about hurting others too. He told doctors he thought reality was fake. He believed people around him were not real. He wrote fictional stories about disturbing themes and looked for someone to join his plans. Was this a planned act or a break from reality? Andrew did not target anyone by name. His actions seemed tied to both his wish to disappear and his troubling beliefs. Police arrested Andrew right away. He was charged as an adult. The charges included taking a life, harming others, careless use of a weapon, and unlawful possession of a controlled substance. His lawyers thought about claiming he was not responsible due to mental illness. They believed the jury would not accept it. To avoid a sentence that could last for life, they advised him to plead guilty to lesser counts. On September 9th, 1999, 15-year-old Andrew pleaded guilty. He received a sentence of 30 to 60 years. He must serve at least 30 years before he can ask for parole. That makes him eligible around 2029 at age 45. He is held at the State Correctional Facility for Young Offenders in Forest, Pennsylvania. Imagine being one of the students that night. They were dancing and celebrating the end of middle school. The music played, and they laughed. Then they heard gunfire. Screams replaced laughter. Their trusted teacher lay dying. Did anyone notice the emptiness in Andrew's eyes? Did anyone connect his odd talk to a warning? Afterward, classmates admitted they shrugged off his comments as jokes. They missed the note he left in his locker labeled Andy's Will, where he talked about leaving his CDs behind. The clues were there. They just went unnoticed. The next teenager stepped out of the bathroom with a revolver in his hand, and within seconds, 2 were gone, and 13 more were hurt. Charles Andrew Williams was born in 1986 in Frederick, Maryland. His parents, Jeff and Linda Williams, divorced around 1990. After that, he lived with his father while his mother and brother lived elsewhere. In Maryland, Andy seemed charismatic and funny. He took part in sports and school theater. Over time, he began skipping classes, setting small fires, taking things that weren't his, and playing disruptive pranks. These behaviors hinted at trouble beneath the surface. In December 1999, Jeff Williams and his son moved to California. They first settled in 29 Palms, then moved to Santee in the summer of 2001. This was just before the tragic events at Santana High School. On the morning of March 5th, 2001, around 9:20 a.m., Andy brought a revolver into the school. He had taken it from his father's locked cabinet without permission. He went into a boys' bathroom and fired a shot that ended freshman Brian Zucker's life. Brian was 14. After that, Andy came out and fired more shots at students and staff. In total, 16 people were shot. 2 young people lost their lives and 13 others were hurt. In the days before, some classmates said Andy spoke about doing something like the Columbine incident. He did not share any formal warning with school staff. Later, he said he felt bullied and humiliated, especially after a teacher spoke to him sharply. He wanted attention or respect. At first, he claimed he didn't expect anyone to perish. He said he only planned to make noise and draw police. He even talked about provoking officers to end his own life. In the end, he gave up. He walked out and told officers, "It's just me, I'm the only one." Instead of a full trial, Andy pleaded guilty on June 20th, 2002. He faced 2 charges of first-degree homicide and 13 charges of attempted homicide. On August 15th, 2002, the judge sentenced him to a total term of 50 years to life. He also received credit for the 529 days he spent in juvenile detention. He was fined $10,000 and ordered to pay restitution to the people he injured. In court, he said, "I feel horrible about what happened. If I could go back to that day, I would never have gotten out of bed." Victims' families and prosecutors had asked for a much longer term, up to 425 years. The judge could not go that high under state rules. He took into account Andy's guilty plea, his expression of regret, and his lack of earlier offenses. Under California law, people who are under 16 but tried as adults become eligible for a youth offender review after serving 25 years. Andy reached that point in September 2024 when he turned 38. At his first parole suitability hearing on September 10th, 2024, the board decided he would stay in prison for at least 3 more years. They mentioned how severe the incident was, the lasting trauma for those involved, and safety concerns for the community. A state Senate leader spoke up, noting how he kept loading and firing even after seeing people fall. Andy's lawyer argued that being in prison doesn't fix anything. Andy himself said at an earlier hearing, "My actions on March 5th, 2001 were monstrous. They were cruel and callous." As of mid-2025, he remains held at the California Institution for Men in Chino. He serves 2 back-to-back terms of 25 years to life. His next review is set for 3 years from now. Andy has said he was the target of intense bullying. He claimed he told staff about it beforehand, but there's no proof of any warning. Reports differ on what he actually said. He also said he never meant to harm anyone. He believes small .22 bullets couldn't end a life. Yet he shot multiple people at close range and reloaded more than once. This suggests he planned beyond just making noise. Was his act a sudden reaction to bullying? Or was it a cold, planned set of decisions driven by despair or a need for attention? Andy once admitted he was an awesome liar. His changing stories leave us asking how much he really believed about the consequences and how much was crafted afterward. The next case wasn't just a school shooting. It was a mental health time bomb, ignored until it went off. Peter Odighizuwa was born in 1959 in Nigeria. He moved to the United States around age 22. In 1989, he became a U.S. citizen. For many years, he drove a taxi in Chicago. In 2000, he enrolled at the Appalachian School of Law in Grundy, Virginia. He struggled in many areas. His grades were poor. He faced money problems. He lost custody of his 4 children. He also had unstable housing. In August 2001, he was arrested for harming his wife, Odighizuwa. A court issued a temporary protection order. Classmates said he was moody and often depressed. They recalled him bursting into meetings and demanding money. One doctor called him a time bomb. On January 16, 2002, around 1 p.m. Eastern, he returned to campus. Earlier that day, officials told him he would be suspended for his low grades. He first spoke with Professor Dale Rubin. He asked Rubin to pray for him. Then he went to Dean Anthony Sutton's office on the 2nd floor. He pulled out a .380 caliber handgun. He fired at the dean at close range. Next, he walked to Professor Thomas Blackwell's office. Blackwell was sitting at his desk. Odighizuwa fired at him in the neck. Then he rushed downstairs into the student lounge. He opened fire on students gathered there. Angela Denise Dales, a 33-year-old former staffer and first-year student, passed away. 3 other students, Rebecca Brown, 38, Martha Short, 37, and Stacy Bean, 22, were wounded. Stacy Bean was hit in the chest but survived. As he tried to leave, other students acted. 2 of them, both officers, went to their cars for their weapons. Tracy Bridges, a deputy sheriff, got a .357 Magnum. Mikael Gross, a police officer, took out a 9mm pistol and body armor. They approached Odighizuwa and ordered him to drop his gun. He let it fall. It seems his magazine was empty. He raised his arms in mock surrender. Then unarmed students, including Ted Beeson, Todd Ross, and Daniel Boyd, tackled him. They held him until police arrived. No more shots were fired. At first, a court found him unfit for the trial. In mid-2002, a judge sent him to a psychiatric hospital. Experts diagnosed him with paranoid schizophrenia. He believed that the CIA, FBI, and top officials were targeting him. He said he heard voices and felt zapped by microwaves. He had shown outbursts in court, which supported the finding that he was unfit. After nearly 3 years of treatment in 2005, he was found fit for trial. To avoid the possibility of a capital sentence, he pleaded guilty. Prosecutors worried that his severe mental illness would make a regular trial risky. His plea guaranteed he would remain in prison for life. Through his guilty pleas, he received 6 life terms plus 28 years. He is not eligible for release. The sentences cover 3 counts of taking a life, 3 counts of attempted taking a life, and weapons charges. Judge Michael Moore in Buchanan County Circuit Court issued the sentence. The prosecutor called it the fairest outcome under the circumstances. What pushed him over the edge that afternoon? Was it just academic failure or something deeper? He had failed before, but this second failure seemed to spark a crisis. A psychologist said that untreated mental illness, voices, paranoia, and delusions turned him into what his defense called a psychological ticking bomb. Why did prosecutors accept a plea deal instead of seeking a harsher outcome? His paranoid schizophrenia and unstable mental state raised doubts about a jury trial. The plea deal ensured he would never be free. Had he ever received treatment before the events? Yes, he had treatment in both Nigeria and the United States. But by late 2001, he was not taking his medication consistently. Stress and delusions intensified. Odighizuwa is now serving his sentence at Red Onion State Prison in Virginia. His case shows how an untreated mental health crisis, combined with academic and personal collapse, led to a tragic outcome. A former law student struggling on many fronts harmed faculty and a classmate, wounded others, and was stopped only by students who stepped in. His trial noted his mental illness, but still held him fully responsible. He will remain behind bars for the rest of his life. Up next is Dropout, 80 Hostages, a school turned into a war zone. Eric Christopher Houston was a student at Lyndhurst High School in Olivehurst, California. He did not graduate. He dropped out and could not get a GED. He was unemployed. He felt angry about not finishing high school and doing poorly in civics class with teacher Robert Brenz. On May 1, 1992, around 2:40 p.m., Houston returned to Lyndhurst High School. He carried 2 firearms. One was a 12-gauge pump-action shotgun. The other was a shortened .22 semi-automatic rifle. He wore a camouflage vest filled with shotgun shells. He also had 2 bandoliers and a belt with extra ammunition. Earlier that day, he had waited for an unemployment check. Then he bought more ammo. He held a clear grudge against his former civics teacher who had failed him. He walked into a classroom and shot teacher Robert Brenz. Brenz did not survive. Next, he shot student Judy Davis, age 17. She also did not survive. He moved down the hall. He shot student Jason Edward White in the chest. White did not survive. At a nearby doorway, he pointed his shotgun at Angela Welch. Student Beeman Aton Hill, age 16, pushed Welch out of the way. Hill was hit and did not survive. 9 other students and 1 teacher were wounded. After that, Houston went to another room. It held about 25 to 30 students. He forced student Andrew Parks to gather more students. At one point, he held over 80 students as hostages. The situation lasted about 8 hours. Finally, Houston gave himself up to the police. Was this act driven by a personal grudge or by anger at more than just his teacher? Houston said it was personal. He admitted that he felt out of touch with reality. He blamed his failures and hopeless feelings. Houston faced serious charges. He was accused of causing 4 fatal outcomes. He also faced 10 counts of attempting to cause fatal outcomes. His trial took place in Yuba County. On September 21, 1993, the jury found him guilty on every count. 4 people had not survived. They were Robert Brenz, Judy Davis, Jason White, and Beeman Hill. 10 others survived with injuries. At sentencing, the jury noted that he had planned the act ahead of time. They also pointed out that he used multiple firearms. The court imposed the harshest sentence allowed under California law. Houston appealed his sentence. In August 2012, the state's highest court reviewed his case. The judges agreed he had a fair trial. They also found clear evidence of planning and intent. His sentence was left in place. As of early 2025, Houston is confined in a section of prison reserved for inmates serving capital sentences. He was first held at San Quentin State Prison. In March 2024, he was moved to Pelican Bay State Prison. Executions in California are on hold, yet his capital sentence still stands. The next students thought it was just another school day until a student dropped in front of them. Douglas Sengsabong Chanthabouly was born on August 16, 1988. He comes from an Asian family. He grew up in Tacoma, Washington. In 2005, doctors found he had paranoid schizophrenia. After that, he got extra support at school. His records at Henry Foss High School show no behavior issues. The school did not note any aggressive actions or weapons on campus. His older brother Dow later told police that Douglas once brought guns to school. He also traded firearms outside school grounds. The school had no idea this was happening. On January 3, 2007, students returned from winter break. Just before 7:30 a.m., Chanthabouly stood in a hallway before first period. He saw 17-year-old Samnang Sam Kok. They knew each other but were not friends. Chanthabouly said, "What's up?" From about 1 foot away, he fired a round at Kok's head. Kok fell to the floor. Chanthabouly then fired 2 more rounds. One hit Kok's side. The other struck his lower back. Students watched in shock. Students ran in panic. Some saw streaks of red on the lockers. Others heard screams fill the hallway. Chanthabouly ran out through double doors. About 2 hours later, officers found him walking a few blocks away. They arrested him. A 9mm handgun was in his pocket. He stayed calm and helped the officers, though he did shake as they spoke with him. He refused to explain why he did it. He told investigators, "I don't want it in the news." At his trial, doctors spoke about his mental state. 2 psychiatric experts said he heard voices and had delusions. He believed Kok was part of a group that wanted to harm him and his younger brother. He said he kept hearing the word blood. That made him feel in danger. He said, "I had to do it. I wouldn't have done it if I didn't have to." He really thought he was defending himself. This raised a question. Was this act driven by hate, anger, or self-protection? His lawyers argued he believed he was acting to stay safe. The jury listened to all the evidence. They decided that even with his illness, he knew his act was wrong. Experts noted he ran away. He said he feared that friends of Sam would come after him. He also worried about facing justice in court. Chanthabouly pleaded not guilty to the most serious charge. His defense said he was not mentally fit. They said he thought he was protecting himself under delusions. At the trial, officers and medics described what they saw. A student said Chanthabouly asked, "Now what, fool?" just before the first round. Mental health professionals confirmed he had paranoid schizophrenia. They agreed he truly believed Cock posed a fatal threat. The jury did not accept his claim of legal unfitness. They found him guilty of a lesser serious offense. They also said the act harmed more people than just Cock. On June 5, 2009, at age 20, a judge gave Chanthabouly 220 months in prison for that offense. The judge added 60 months because of the firearm. In total, that is 23 years behind bars. After release, he will have to check in with authorities for the rest of his life. Jamar Siler was born in Florida. He later moved to Knoxville, Tennessee. His childhood was broken. Both parents had serious issues with heavy drinking and white powder. He lived in several foster homes in Florida and in Tennessee. School records show he struggled with learning. Doctors suspect he had effects from substance exposure before birth. He had very little support. Over time, his behavior problems got worse. On the morning of August 21, 2008, Siler was 15 years old. He walked into the Central High School cafeteria in Knoxville. An argument that began on the school bus continued inside. Siler took out a handgun. He fired once at fellow freshman Ryan McDonald, who was also 15. Students looked on in shock. Ryan staggered, held his chest, and fell to the floor. Red stains spread around him. The school went into lockdown. Minutes later, officers arrested Siler on a nearby street. Ryan lived with his grandmother. He had alopecia, which caused him to lose all of his hair. Other students teased him about that. His family remembers him as tough on the outside and kind on the inside. He looked out for younger children. He shared what little he had with others, even when things were hard for him. A key question was whether Siler had planned this act, or if he lost control in the moment. That issue shaped the entire case. At first, Siler faced juvenile charges of first-degree homicide. Then the case moved to adult court. First-degree homicide carried a possible life sentence, with parole only after 51 years. His lawyer argued that Siler's fetal addiction effects meant he could not form a clear plan. An expert, Dr. Brown, never turned in her report. The defense team said they did not pay her quickly enough. Without her findings, that line of defense fell apart. There were witnesses. DNA tests pointed to Siler. He had bragged about what he did. His position in court was weak. He eventually agreed to plead guilty to second-degree homicide. He received a 30-year prison term with no chance of their early release. He got credit for the 3 years he had already spent in custody. When he was 18, Siler formally entered his plea. He said he understood the rights he gave up. He said no one forced him to agree. He believed this deal was better than risking the possible life sentence. In 2015, Siler asked a higher court to review his plea. He claimed his choice was not truly voluntary. He said his lawyer had been ineffective for not securing the expert's report. The Tennessee Court of Criminal Appeals denied his appeal. The judges noted the lawyer had tried to pay Dr. Brown and request more time. They found no proof that she would have supported the defense. They ruled the lawyer acted properly. They said Siler was not harmed by the lawyer's actions. Ryan McDonald's family had already faced bullying and many hardships. Losing Ryan was a devastating blow. They accepted the plea deal to avoid a public trial. They feared private details about Ryan's life might be exposed. His uncle said, "We just have to live with how it ended." They still feel that 30 years is too short.